So, BRYAN ECCLESHALL, Cornucopia behind me. How many paintings have we got here of yours?
Um, I I did try and tot it up. It's over 200. I think it's about 212, something like that. I can't remember exactly. I assume you put all of them up somehow.
I think there might be one or two that
Yeah,
got
that was
held
yeah.
behind.
But yeah, there's over two. I sent you over 200. So
Yeah. And they are mostly acrylic or some of
yeah, there's some ink in there as well. But I usually just the acrylic usually obliterates the ink, but sometimes there's a bit of ink drawn on top. But it's acrylic ink, so yes, they're all acrylic on paper.
Tell me about the gestation of this. How did it start?
Well, well, um, it's
I should get out of the way. So,
these things these things never have one starting point, and I think it's a mistake to pretend that they do.
mm,
um, I picked up I suppose I could show you. I picked up because I liked it, a bundle of the paper
I was
in
going to
in
ask
in
if they were,
Casa Arts, and
yeah,
I just thought, God, that's so cute. I
yeah.
used to work in the printing industry and used to buy paper, so I really like nice paper. And this has got this deckled edge because each sheet is made individually. Then it's not a sheet that's been cut up, so they have this lovely kind of handmade feel to it. And I like the idea of people making tiny bits of paper. So I just bought them because I thought they were cute. And I like to make lots of work. And I had been working in the studio and I'd made a couple of big paintings. One was a big triptych that I made that was well liked, and I've shown it a couple of times, and it's always gone down well. That's really big, um, sort of 6 foot by 5 foot, and that was great. But I made it really quickly, and then I made another painting after seeing an exhibition by Andrew Cranston, sort of as a sort of tribute to him, and I made that quite quickly. I did some follow up on it, but I made those two paintings. They're really. I think, oh, I'm making really good paintings. They're really nice and big and colourful and stuff. Um, and then I tried to make more, and I just struggled. Partly because oil paint is tricky. I mean, that's an obvious thing to say. It's wonderful, but it's tricky. Um, but if you're not going in every day, and I can't because of my teaching commitments, you come in and it's sort of gone a bit chewy and you can't move it around anymore and it's not quite dry enough to get rid of. You can't scrape it up. So I was ending up with these kind of starting paintings that were 3 foot, 4 foot big, and they're just in the way and they smell and they cost a lot of money. And I just started making, and I'd always made little sketchbooky kind of workbook things that suddenly got, and I haven't got any with me. I should have brought them with me, but small things and loads of images, loads of overwhelming reference material that I collected. I've got a folder on my actually on this USB stick,
Mhm.
which has got like thousands of images. Some of them are mine, some of them are just artworks, photographs I've taken, photographs I've stolen off the internet, and I just thought I'll just start making those. And I'd made some UFO paintings on this paper that showed at another gallery.
I think
Um,
those were the ones that I'd seen, and
yeah, they were in
the ones I
Minnesota,
invited you to show.
and they were nice to make, but they didn't have any kind of reference to anything particular. They were just invented, and they're a way of making colourful things, and I like them. And then I just started bit by bit, start thinking, well, what if I make little paintings of the things that this scrapbook of images, and I just thought I just got into it, and I just had no failures. They just kept being okay. And if I didn't, and I've got a little box of them here, and I've got some that are half finished. So I just do a bit on them, and then I leave them. And then, yeah, that one's not great, but it needs finish. But I will wrestle it to the ground and make it work. And I just started making them, and they just started working. And so I just leaned into it really. Um, and I've now put the oil paints away. I've
Oh,
tidied up my
really?
studio. Yeah, well, they were kind of there, and I kind of went back and tried to make a few more after making a load of these. Thought maybe I've learned enough now to go and
Mm.
scale these up. You can't. They work completely differently. They don't scale up um, in the same
Okay,
way,
because that
And I
that is
found
what
that
I was going to ask you about, whether these were studies for bigger pieces or smaller versions of bigger pieces that you've
well,
done,
there
or
are
if they
smaller
are
versions of
work
bigger.
in and of themselves now.
They are smaller work. Some of them are literally smaller paintings of large things. Um, because I thought that would be quite fun. That's a small version of the large painting I made.
Mm.
which is 6 foot by 5 foot. And it's a triptych. This is now a diptych because it's 2 pieces, and that's a pretty good representation of it. And I quite like that, and I'm never getting rid of that because I'll have to one day I'll have to get rid of
Mine.
it. It's just in the way, but this is a nice souvenir. And
Yeah.
that's the other. Some of them are kind of small versions of paintings that I've got. The one in the right hand side at the bottom, in the bottom layer, the one called Ghost, which I can see. Yeah, to the right of the stairs, in the middle, the red one with the white figure with the black triangles, and the bottom. The inverted triangles, and on the bottom, on the lower level.
Sorry, am I in the right
Yeah,
house?
to the right of those stairs. Bottom. It's called Ghost. It's the red one with the red surround and a white figure in the middle, and black inverted triangles.
Why am I not seeing this?
It's just on the bottom level. It's well, I've got my cursor over it. That's no use to you. No. To the other side of the stairs.
Oh, this one.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a small version of a large painting that's
Sorry,
online.
very slow today. I haven't had my coffee.
That's a small painting of a large painting I've got on my stairs, which it's not exactly the same, but it's like it. And it's based on a drawing someone made of an alien, an alien intervention or something. Because I collect which is one of the images I've collected. So some of them are little souvenirs of other paintings. Some of them are bits of other paintings. Some of them are miniatures of paintings that I admire. There's an Alfred Wallace. There's a William Dobson. There's Delft tiles. There's medieval stuff. It's there's angels. There's all sorts of stuff. Part of it, the kind of where are they sort of sketches or proposals for large paintings, if you like. In some respects, yes, but those paintings are probably never going to get made.
Right.
I was thinking the other day about what Bob Dylan said when he wrote Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. He was asked what it's about because it's a weird song. It doesn't make any kind of sense. I mean, a lot of his songs don't make any sense, but and he said, and it's not quite, someone's done some scholarship on it and worked out the dates aren't quite right, but the story is, he said, I wrote this because it's the first lines of all the songs I won't be able to write because the world's going to end. Because the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening. And they, so I like the idea that these are all the paintings that I'm 60 in November. If I was a 20-something-year-old, I could make these paintings. If I could make large versions. I ain't got time. I ain't got the money. I ain't got the storage space. So they kind of sit as proposals for paintings that probably won't ever get made. But then they become a thing in themselves. Like you realize very quickly when you're making work like this, I think, that you're not making one picture over, and then another one and another. You're actually making something that is greater than the sum of its parts.
And where does it stop? Do you see an end to it, or do you see you doing this for the rest of your days? Is this your practice now?
It is the dominant part of my practice. I don't think it'll be the only thing I do. I mean, I've just been sitting here making little doodles of towers in ink. I just like making stuff. I'm just prolific.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it too much. I just sort of make.
How many do you work on a day? Do you work on several at once, or is it like one a day?
Yeah.
How disciplined are you with it, or are you more flexible?
If I go to the studio, or if I'm sitting here at my desk at home, because they're small, I can work on them at home. I've got a bag of stuff I carry back and forth. I work on them, and some of them, like I say, some of them are half done. I do bits, like that's going to be one. But I've mislaid the source. That's a Giotto from the Arena Chapel.
Oh wow!
I need to find the source of that to finish it off.
Is it an angel? Another angel?
It's another angel. It's one of the ones from the Arena Chapel, the Padua, the chapel in Padua, which is highly recommended. Another one, and I've got other ones that are just things like, and they're kind of crap at the moment. I mean, that's a still from Apocalypse Now. Just the surfer getting the sun, he's sort of trying to get a suntan underneath his chin.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Another one of the figures waving the Berlin Wall. But they need refining. So sometimes I work on them until I'm happy with them, but I'm not I don't work on them till each one is finished. I like having a few out. It also means if I'm working in purple, I will put purple on, that'd be nice. Really straightforward stuff. I'm quite indisciplined in terms of what I'm doing, but I'm quite disciplined in the fact that I make a lot.
The fact that you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, the odd ones are kind of the ones that you make. Like I made one recently that's a different, or you've got all the portrait ones.
Yes.
And I've got some landscape ones. I've not got as many landscape ones, but these are the landscape ones. And I made one the other day, just as I was leaving the I was leaving the studio. I was just about
kind of like, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to see over the ledge to see. Kind of like
no, you know when you sort of think, oh, I'm going home, and thinking, oh, I could just do another. I could just start another one, and I made that.
Oh, brilliant!
That has got so many likes on Instagram, and it was the one I made I was going out the door, and I just seen that mixtape program, you know, and I lived in Sheffield, and I know the record shop where they were in and all that, so it was kind of nice. And I just thought, oh, a little cassette, and I just found a picture of a cassette online and just made that.
Love it.
It's just a whim, really.
Yeah.
But sometimes they kind of hit the bullseye, and I quite like that. I quite like the sort of the work that you're making.
I mean, the more graphic stuff does tend to sort of like pop on you know, a medium like Instagram. So
yeah,
the more intricate works are kind of harder to read.
Yeah, and Instagram's a great format for this because actually people are seeing them sort of the right size or even a little bit bigger. Whereas if you're making a big painting and you put it on Instagram, it's just not the same. So I quite, you know, and I'm always telling students, go and see the work in the flesh if you can, because it's different.
Exactly.
A bit messier and a bit scruffier than you think, actually.
Yeah, until you're standing in front of it, and like especially a bigger work and sort of just like being encompassed by it. It's
and there's something weird and interesting about having these works. Now I've had two of these shows in these kind of tiny galleries. There's something about the scale, because I see photographs. I've not seen either of them in either of the shows in the flesh. The scale. Suddenly you're thinking, wow, these would look so cool if they were like 4 feet high and I could make that many of them. And you know, if you could scale up. Now I don't know what it would look like, but you sort of can do that by sort of imagining, and you know. What it would be to be in that space, because you can sort of do the projection bit a little bit. But
I suppose you could, if they were lithographs, if you were sort of, you know, you could size them up in that way, if you really wanted to create that. And you know, you're a fan of Rauschenberg.
I'm a fan of lots of things, and I like the texture, I like the physicality of it, I like the medium. I mean, the thing that you would lose if you made a print of these is you'd lose the edge, and I like the edge and the slightly kind of crinkly, the fact that, you know, they're more or less the same size, they're made to the same size, but because of the nature of the manufacturing process, the paper is not they're not identical.
No, they're very,
and I like that. I like this sort of, especially as a rebuttal to lots of digital work. And I've made digital collages. I had a series where I made thousands of them over a year, and I had an exhibition in the Green Rooms Hotel in North London. And they're all LP sized prints. They're 12 inches by 12 inches, but they're exact and they're framed and they're nice, but they lose.
I suppose they're more commercial.
There's something about the physicality of it that's a rebuttal to this NFT culture that we seem to be we seem to be sliding towards. I think, not sure we are now, which is ironic because when I was a student in the 80s, there was a whole thing about painting as a luxury. Painting is bourgeois. Painting is expensive wallpaper. We should do multiples. We should do that kind of post-conceptual art.
Yes, rhizomes.
Give out things, photocopy, make it free, you know, leave it lying around and make it cheap. And it's like, well, that's kind of like that idea, but you end up with this kind of cheap art, you know. It's that's not actually very engaging. I like the work that draws you back. You know, when you see a Rembrandt and you see the way that the gestures are made, in the paintings, you know, you go back and look at these paintings. I mean, I go back loads and loads of times to see some of my favorite paintings, and there's something about the material quality of it that's got nothing to do with the meaning, what it's about, or the biblical story, or the metaphor. It's to do with somebody standing in front of it with some stuff doing this, and that seems quite human, which is ironic because. Well, that's not ironic, but it's ironic that what I thought was more human was this kind of make it cheap, everyone can have it, you know, we can replicate things and everyone can have the same and they're all democratic and equal. Actually, it's not.
And then it's watered down and soulless.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It takes the human out of it. It makes it bland, and often quite obscure. And seduction. I mean, I suppose I like things that are seductive, and that was a dirty word for a while.
Yeah.
It seemed like a con or something, but
well, I mean, these are extremely tactile and they are sensuous. So of course they, they have that sort of quality to them as well. So your themes that you seem to be drawn to heads,
yeah, I mean,
vessels,
heads, vessels,
powers,
UFOs,
sort of monsters or like the grotesque.
I like medieval stuff.
Yeah, the medieval stuff is great.
Manuscript like the Blemmy, which is the figure with the face in the head in the chest. I've just started listening to Umberto Eco's Baudolino again.
I love Umberto Eco. Oh my God.
Yeah, well,
yes.
I'm a mug for all of
that as well.
And what I really like about that medieval stuff, I mean, these also in their size, they relate to that idea, the Book of Hours kind of things, those French books that are Mughal Islamic miniatures you get from on the Silk Road and that. And okay, then I mean, I'm not making those, obviously, but I like the fact that they're pre-Renaissance, or they sit outside Renaissance sensibilities, and the ones that are, things like Hieronymus Bosch are interesting because he's kind of Renaissance, but doesn't feel like Renaissance. And then I kind of jumped to Baroque. I jumped to sort of Caravaggio and Rembrandt in my taste. The Rembrandt's, the Renaissance stuff's amazing, but it seems quite, the Southern Renaissance stuff, quite alien to me, although I enjoy it. And I really, really, really want to go and see the Piero del Francesco murals, the frescoes at Arezzo that Philip Guston loved so much, because they look amazing. But I really like Bruegel and his kind of Northern Renaissance kind of not obscenity. Yeah, there's Bruegels in there, and there's a couple more I've done. That sort of people knocking each other off each other's shoulders and that kind of folk tale sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's very light. I mean, it's just whatever catches my eye, really. But there's things like when you make these things, you realize that I make a lot of heads, I make a lot of vessels, and I knew that going into this project. As I was making these, I knew those were things I'd already been making. So I kind of, and the Delft tile things with the tulips, they come up quite a lot. And I like those because they're like the first the tulips
the first
are the first NFTs, they're the first bubble. And there is actually, I believe there is a project, an NFT project centered around tulips, and the idea is to go bust, is to rip people off the bust. Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, it's just far too elaborate for me, but that whole idea that these,
the craze,
these things don't go away. It's like these things
kind of, new. Yeah.
The tower thing though is definitely something I'm
Babel featured.
The Tower of Babel, I'm fascinated by
massively.
I
love them all. I want the whole collection of all the Babel towers.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing to stop. Well, nothing to save your I like the fact that it's this very old, I mean, it's very early on in Genesis, myth or story that sits at the root of Western culture, of Western and Middle Eastern culture, because it's in the, it's in the Jewish Pentateuch, and it's in the Christian Bible, and this idea that and then of course Bruegel made those fantastic paintings of Towers of Babel, those two amazing paintings, and then there's others around, and you see them on Delft tiles, you see them throughout, and they're just an icon. And I love the fact that they are about. I love looking at the story from the other way on. That they're seen as this idea that mankind was cooperating to build a tower to heaven, and God sort of cursed them with different languages so they couldn't do it. Well, I quite like the idea that you're thinking actually, God, and if you're a believer, you sort of believe that God's doing a good thing, that He's sort of saying, you can't get that, you can't cheat by getting to heaven. But I quite like the idea of saying actually He sort of spoiled human cooperation and now created conflict. So actually it inverts the morality of a divine being, I think. I mean, it's all, you know, me retelling the story from a different way. But I also like the fact that society is about negotiation. It's about these things, you know. I mean, in various ones, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily know it by looking at these things. But the idea of people having ideologies in a kind of very fixed way, I think that is quite a dangerous thing, because people then attribute everything they know to an idea that someone else has come up with that makes sense, whether it's a religion or a political creed or you know, those are the two big ones, but there are.
And then they have to bend themselves and mold
and they
themselves
have a position and they hold on to that position,
yeah.
And then everything else has to be fitted in somehow. So they do these kind of mental gymnastics, and you know, life's really complicated. People have lots of different ways of solving things. There's a great line in one of my favorite books. John le Carre says in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, you know, an artist is the kind of guy, and it's a quote from someone else, Fitzgerald, I think, or Scott Fitzgerald, something like that. An artist is the person who can have two contradictory positions and function.
Two contradictory
positions and still function.
Without function. Yeah.
And that's what an artist can do.
And maybe more than two.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, at times you're thinking, I know, you know, there's a great Bob and Roberta Smith quote when he says, you know, I lie awake worrying. I mean, you're probably going to put this on the website and he might disagree, but I see an interview with him and he says, I lie awake thinking about fonts and colors. And I know I shouldn't, but I can't help it. Because he's, you know, his work's about ideas, about political, you know, empowerment and changing society but you know, whether that M is in blue on red or red on blue does matter.
Yeah.
And I think artists hold those different strands of sort of formal things, intellectual things, historical things, pleasure, you know, putting that color next to that color to go, wow, you know, we get off on that.
Yeah.
And you have to have all of these things firing and they move around. So I'm against the idea of ideology being a driving factor. Although I kind of get why people have them, you know, we're all busy. But so yeah, the Tower of Babel is an interesting one because it seems to cram up, and also you can make things, you know, really, you know, odd, you know, by making these strange structures. And I've just been playing with ideas of sort of this sort of thing, which if I have more space, I can make, you know, more complicated versions of it, you know, sort of. So just making these kind of architectural fantasies as out of doodles.
Right. Okay.
And then they become,
they come from your head. You're not copying anything because you are at times you're copying.
Yeah.
You know, you're studying other artists, the greats. And at times it's coming from your imagination. But
yeah, absolutely. And
you've got incredible draftsmanship, like for the architectural.
Some of it's all right. I mean, I'm not the world's greatest. I'm not the most natural great draftsman or anything, but I like. It's amazing actually what you can achieve in a small space.
Here's a tower. I don't want to. So let me see if I can.
Which one's that? Which one is that?
Tell you in a moment.
Oh right, yeah.
This is another Babel.
Oh yeah, that's from a manuscript. Yeah, that I kind of. You know, I put a different background, but it's
That's my favorite. Well, one of my favorites. You know, I have like 6 at least.
No, and it's really nice. And the other thing is when you make a body of work that's like so varied, is that none of them have to do all of the work. They lean on each other, they converse with each other, and they.
Yeah, it was quite fun to put them. So I used your curation, like. You know, but I didn't stick to it entirely. So the books that you gave me, they were in number order, and so some of them are vaguely in the sort of, you know, in the same area as, and some of them are in the same layout as those, you know, 2-page spreads.
Yeah.
And you really didn't want me to curate it like according to, you know, subject or, you know, shape or color or anything like that, and you know, you wanted it as randomized as possible. So it was quite fun, like keeping it random, but like also going, no, I had to make I had to make a decision. I couldn't resist putting these two next to each other, having
Of
these
course, and I like the
conversations.
tension of that. I
Yeah,
like the tension of like, oh, it kind of, this it flows and then it doesn't, and then you get a rupture, and then you see things together, and you sort of um, you spot similarities in things that you didn't know were there until you put them next to
exactly.
you, and they go, blimey,
The
that's
heads and the vessels, and yeah.
yeah. I mean, I remember listening to, I listen to a lot of music on sort of shuffle because I'm the age where I'll probably die with an iPod in my hand. And I remember hearing two tracks next to each other years ago, and it was Suspicious Minds by Elvis and Karma Chameleon by Country Club. And there's and in the middle of Karma Chameleon, I think it's Karma Chameleon, Boy George sounds exactly like Elvis. Now, you wouldn't know that listening to just Boy George.
Right.
But if you listen to them together, the
It's like,
bridge
oh,
of
this is
one
the
of them
same
sounds like,
artist.
well, they just sound similar. And you're thinking, wow, I wouldn't have known that if they hadn't been smashed together in this kind of, shuffling thing. I
Interesting.
like that sort of,
Clash.
yeah, that clash. And that's what it is. You walk down the street, and that's how it is. That's the world. It's not
Exactly.
neat. And a lot of exhibitions try and over explain and
Mm.
like you going back to Umberto Eco. I love in this book you have all these lists of things. He's a big lister of stuff, and
Who,
they're all kind
sorry?
of Umberto Eco. He has
Oh,
lots of
yeah.
lists,
Yes. Yeah.
and they're these kind of weird lists of just all kinds of nonsense, and they go on and on and on. And I like that. I think that's like the world. I don't think it's neat. I
Mm.
don't think it's well, certainly in my brain, it's not a straight line from one thing to another. It is a rhizome, but it's. I mean, I don't. It's easy to get dragged into the very cool
Can't
ideas of the
speak.
classic,
Mm.
but it's just chaotic. It's just
Yeah.
awkward and difficult. And I listen to music that I don't. It doesn't. Some things influence me, some things don't. There's lots of science fiction in there. There's
Yeah.
science fiction references and stills from films and stuff, which I like as well. They're little souvenirs of my life, really.
Yeah.
And I
Space
don't,
Odyssey.
yeah, yeah, HAL 9000, which is sold, which is nice. I knew that was a good one.
Congratulations.
So that's the other thing. When you make some of these, you go, "That's a good one." I know
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so simple.
Yeah, and iconic. I
That
mean, you see these
particular
things, and they're
image. Again, the
absolutely
graphic
iconic
ones
things.
really pop on on
Yeah,
socials.
and you get a
Trying to
little
find
weird
him
one.
now.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead. I'm just trying to find Hal.
No, right. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, there he is.
Oh, he's tucked up under the stairs nearly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take him off the wall, calling him him.
Careful, it's stole. It's sold.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm afraid I can't do that for you, Dave. Yeah,
so
it's a good book, actually.
gorgeous.
And because I make so many, I sort of not only forget them, but you sort of remind yourself, oh yeah, I made that one too. You sort of go through and cataloging them. But then you get weird things like there's one, the right-hand house, ground floor, left-hand side, top layer, third one along.
This one.
Yeah, which is just this kind of weird sort of water-like thing.
Yeah, what is that one again?
That's called the Fool, I think.
Like a tarot card.
Well,
Because some
if
of
you
them
open,
sort of do remind me of tarot cards, and that's
okay.
another place you can take this. Yes, the Fool.
The Fool, and that is because if you've got a copy of Sergeant Pepper, the
Ah,
inner sleeve has a design not dissimilar to that. It's not the same. I've not copied it, but it's from my memory, and it says colors. And it was designed by the Fool, who are the people who did the mural on the side of the Abbey, the Apple shop in Savile Row. They were like a design collective from the 60s called a bunch of hippies,
oh
and they would call
wow.
themselves the Fool. So
Oh,
I just thought, oh, that's nice. And I just started making something, and it was in another picture, I think. And I just thought, oh, that looks a bit like that. My memory of that, I must admit, I didn't look it up. I can find it and see if it's still here. But it's nothing like it. But those little memories and little, they. Yeah,
so
there
in a
we go.
way, it's kind of like a teenager's bedroom.
That's the inner that was the inner sleeve around the LP as the CD thing, but it's not exactly the same. But it's got
Yeah.
that's a good memory of it. So in a way, it's kind of filtered by my sensibilities. You know, the research is not. I'm not a very sort of diligent researcher, and that's fine. It's just kind of you just make these things, and they find their way into the world. You know, you make them, and that they become true because you know you mishear them, and
exactly
the tale grows in telling. You know, what's it like been living with them?
It's been lovely. It's been really, really wonderful. Sometimes I need to close the doors and, you know, kind of block them out a little bit because they can be, you know, overwhelming, which is the point of it. And very distracting. But yeah, there's just so many, you know, it's like those story dice or some, you know, you kind of your mind is creating stories out of these juxtapositions. Here's the Blemmy. I wasn't sure how to pronounce him.
Well, that's how I pronounce it. I must admit, it's a weird spelling because it's Y-E at the end. So is it Blemmy? Yeah, a Blemmy. And it's next to the portrait of Mark. And it's next to the portrait of Mark E. Smith, which is just actually one of his jumpers.
And the triangle face. What's behind this guy? I was curious.
It's a manuscript medieval. I follow these people like on Instagram who post things from manuscripts, and that's
and the triangle is there, and
yeah, it's there. Really? You know, I'm thinking I don't know what that's
so
about.
You didn't create that.
No. That's the other thing I found amazing is that these pre-Renaissance, pre-modern, they're so inventive, they're so playful, and they're full of kind of just strangeness.
Yeah.
And it seems you know, I kind of want to be part of it. So I make, you know, there's one that I know you liked, which is on the ground floor on the right hand side, above the Polaris missile being launched from the sea, which I think is the attributes one. Right hand side, ground floor, under the stairs. It's the one of the. It's above that. Just that. It's that one. Yeah. It's called attributes, I think, and it's. I was in the. Show me. Yes, it is that one. Yeah, I was in the. Oh God, there's the museum on Birmingham University campus, the institute, the Art Institute, and they got this painting, and it's a medieval painting or an early Renaissance painting of a saint holding up their own lungs and trachea.
Okay.
Because it's like that saints would hold their attributes. Like there's the one, there's the saint who holds her eyes
with the eyes, yeah.
Or people with the, you know, we all know the Artemisia Gentileschi with the wheel, the Catherine wheel.
Right.
Harmful. You know, and some of them are really quite gruesome.
There's one on a plate. Yes, I can't remember what saint it is.
There's one in here that one there, which I saw in, you know, with the and that's St. whoever.
It's St. Peter, one of them. I remember there's like one with a hatchet in his head.
St. Peter of Verona.
Yes, there you go.
And that's from a fresco that I saw in Mantua or something. And you know, I was thinking that's the worst hangover ever, isn't it? You know? But I kind of think it's
so St. Peter has is St. Peter the one with the key, and he's got the right.
Well, St. Peter, the disciple, has the keys, and because he's
okay,
you know, that's why the Vatican.
I've conflated the two.
Yeah, but there are other Peters, you know, kind of. So they have all these sort of visual things that they hold, and I've become interested in artists like Chagall, who have these kind of strange things, you know, rabbis with lemons on their head, or
green-skinned rabbis, you know.
And all of that, which seems much. I mean, when I was studying, I was kind of interested in this sort of, I suppose, the Duchampian conceptual stuff and all that. And you know, I don't hate that, but I remember a moment, and I think we have these moments as we get older, and I can identify these things, or I think about these things as doglegs.
Oh, we've got less than a minute. Hold that thought. Let's pop back in, and we're going to talk about Duchamp and Chagall. Okay. It's going to cut us off in any moment. I'll stop recording.
I'll leave and rejoin.
Okay, same. So before we got so rudely cut off,
Yeah.
talking about
Well,
just
yeah, I
how
when I
you
was a
sort of
student,
almost outgrown him or something, or no?
well, when I was a student in the which was sort of the early to mid 80s. I graduated in 88. So it was pre-YBA, but people like Jeff Koons and Cindy Sherman and Ashley Bickerton, that whole kind of New York Neo Geo, Peter Halley, people like that, who were all kind of interesting artists, I think, and saw all that, but and was a bit snobby about and sniffy about different kinds of art, but was interested in
Wow,
conceptual art.
when you're that age.
Yeah, and it seemed, and there's a whole lot of Stalinist revisionism that go on that you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you get rid of all of this stuff, and then someone stands you in front of a Rubens and you go, I get it, yeah, okay. And
Titian.
sorry,
For me, it's Titian.
okay,
Tiziano, it's like impossible to kind of not be in awe of that
yeah. I mean, for me,
level of
it's Rembrandt,
skill.
sort of Rembrandt and Caravaggio are two that sit there. But I had this moment, and I was asked when I was doing my doctorate, one of my fantastic director of studies, Penny McCarthy, said to me, "You need to, because it's practice led." She says, "You need to identify, or can you identify, one or two moments of when you were working in the studio that changed the direction of the research of the project as a whole?" And I actually went, she says, "You don't have to answer me now. It's a rhetorical question. Because if the answer is no, then it's not practice led. It's practice following." And that seemed like a really good thing. So I've always been aware of these kind of moments where you think, I'm doing this, then something, you make a piece of work, you see something, you have a conversation, you read an essay, something, and that you go, hold on a minute, no, I'm doing this actually. This is where it goes. There was a moment. I was in London. I went to Tate Britain, and they had an exhibition in the right-hand side of the Duveen Gallery of British conceptual art. And it was a pay exhibition, but I'm a member, so I went. I thought I'll just have a look in. It didn't cost me anything. Go in, and it was Bruce MacLean and Art and Language, and Conrad Atkinson and Kenneth Armitage, all those men. And I went round, the whole, and I quite like Bruce MacLean. He makes me laugh. And I quite like Conrad Atkinson's paintings of newspapers, which were part of the show. And there's one or two other bits it was nice to see. But I went through the whole show, which is about 3 or 4 rooms on the right hand side, in about 10 minutes. And it's like, and there's a lot to read. The works have got a lot to read, not just the title.
Right.
I went through across the Duveen Gallery, and I went across and I looked at Dora Carrington's painting of Wat Endleth, which is, I don't know, it's about that big, and there's a little version of it in the barn door. And I spent 10 minutes in front of that. And I thought, hold on a minute. I've been full. I mean, that was that was way after I graduated. And then again, hold on a minute. Am I holding on to something that's just not that interesting to me anymore? And it was felt like a moment where I was like, I need to lean into the things which move me. And there's when you're young and you've got no trauma. I'd got no trauma. I was kind of just a nice middle class kid who went to art school. I wasn't working anything out. I was just doing it. But as you get older, you kind of, you become a bit more sentimental and a bit more emotional and a bit more open to that. And I'm very British, so, I bottom that up. But you stand in front of these things and you have a moment. And I think now I lean into that. Life's too short to be sniffy about these things. So there was that. And then I also went to see similar situation, same place. A few years later, it was post-COVID, I think. I went in and there was a Cornelia Parker show in the right-hand side of the Tate Britain with the exploded shed and the flattened steel. I went around, and again, it was all very interesting, but it was very kind of, And I walked down, Hugh Locke's Procession was in the middle, and this kind of fantastic, colourful eruption of material, of handmade, of politics, because it's all
community made as well.
Community made, and it's just improvised. It's like a Miles Davis record. It's like here's the plan, here are the chords, let's make something. Bang. And
yeah, it was noisy.
And it's brilliant, and it's shot. It was like that. It was a bit like a New Orleans funeral, or that bit in Live and Let Die where James Bond is running. It's kind of got that explosion of humanity, regardless of the individual. It's about Guyana and sugar, slavery, and all that. I get that that's all there too, and I don't want to belittle that. But there's something I wanted to keep looking at it, and would want me to make me investigate and know about that kind of post-colonial stuff. Because it was so engaging. the conceptual art stuff and the Cornucopia just seemed to me an exercise in being smart.
Right.
And that's not to knock that work in itself, because
No,
that's sort of what it is,
it is
isn't
also
it?
brilliant in a different way.
It's brilliant, but it's sort of well done, you. I don't care. um, and I mean, that's not entirely fair. I remember seeing a Cunningley Parker, one of her in Lincoln. It was a one piece in a room, and it was the rocks that are suspended low on the above the floor, but they're suspended. And every time someone came in, they just floated and moved around a bit. That was quite amazing. That was brilliant. Because you don't get that when you see a photograph of it. It's this kind of slightly unerring movement, and that seemed to be the point of the work, not look how well arranged it is and how well installed, how complicated it is. And it did something emotional or sensual,
yes,
to me. That was just, it was all about like having vertigo, watching the sea, but the sea was made of rocks.
right.
But you don't get that in all of them. You just get the fact that someone's funded someone to run over a load of brass instruments, and what you end up with flat brass instruments. Thinking, I'm not sure that's, it's all right, but I'm not. That's
yeah.
But you've sort of I began to see where I was, and it was about picture making, and it was about painting and drawing, and sort of, it wasn't about things meaning or standing for or being part of a sort of a political big P sort of thrust. It was coming out elsewhere, and I needed to listen to that and lean into it, and that's where this work has come from, I suppose. Of course, all those things come out in the work. Those interests in sort of whether it's
Yeah, you've
hydrology.
still got bottle rack in there.
I think it's a brilliant thing.
Love it.
And I still love Duchamp, but I sort of, it's a bit like, Duchamp is great, and I've always thought, yeah, it's a good one. I've actually got a slightly,
that one's for me too.
all right. I've got a slightly bigger version of that somewhere as well, but I think I'm keeping that one. It's easy to be, a bit sniffy about Duchamp, because it does seem a little bit sort of, a lot of the work that's influenced by Duchamp isn't very good. That doesn't mean he's not. It's like criticizing Led Zeppelin.
He does have a whiff of like con artist about him,
That's kind of interesting too,
yeah,
as well.
exactly.
But I mean, it's like blaming Led Zeppelin for heavy metal. It's not really their fault. I mean, I quite like some heavy metal, and I quite like Led Zeppelin, but it's not. The fact that someone came up with something doesn't mean that everything that flows from it is as good as, or that they're to blame. So he's an interesting character, and the thing about Duchamp, like, people overlook and continue to overlook, is he made exquisite objects. He's got this idea of this chess playing appropriationist, just that's art, pointing at things. He wrote on the back of a comb, a little metal comb, and he wrote words on that. Is a really difficult thing to do. And he oversaw the Boîte en Valise thing, which, in a way,
I love that. Exactly.
This is very much a Boîte en Valise project. It's like it's like miniature versions of all his work. I worked out the maths when I was doing
if only I could have one of those. Oh my goodness.
I think I worked out that he oversaw the production of 140,000 objects in that series.
Yeah.
And they were not all the same.
Exactly.
Some of them got more of this. So this idea that he's mass produced, he sort of is, but also they're not, they kind of makes these rules and then he breaks them. But yeah, I mean, these tiny galleries, there's a little Boîte en Valise element about them.
And the Bachelor and the Bride, what is that called again? Yeah. God, it's got like
Bride Strip Bare by a Bachelor's Eve.
Yeah.
And all of these are great. And I love all that work. And I kind of like the conceit of it, the intellectualism of it. And there are also artists that you kind of like, and they don't actually have an impact on you because of the way you think. I mean, I really like, I'm kind of have this sort of relationship with like Joseph Beuys, who's this frustrating self-mythologizing guy. He makes these extraordinary things. And I've had some really interesting moments with his work. But I don't buy into the whole Beuys, eco-mythology thing. But you sort of, but he can hold me to account for my productivity.
Right. I'm trying to find your Beuys piece. You have a couple of them in this, but yeah, this one.
Which one's that? Oh, there's one of the I like America, but oh yeah, yeah, I like American, and America likes me. I've also got one. Is it of Anthony Perkins wrapped up at the end of Psycho in a blanket?
Yes.
And it looks it looks like Joseph Beuys. But some of them are,
Let me see if
I
I
don't
can
know.
find that one too to share. Like any that we're referencing, I think
Yeah.
they'll pop up on the screen. But before I do, tell me about this one.
Okay.
This is the crocodile man.
Oh, it's just one I call crocodiles. Yeah. There's a photograph of a bloke wearing an outfit that looks like that.
Oh, okay.
It's like it's sort of a folk. It's a folk thing, from somewhere. And I am aware that I'm culturally appropriating things. I am aware that I steal, and that I plagiarize a little, and but I actually don't have a big problem with that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not passing off what I do as the work of others, and I'm putting it in a context which is about, these are the inputs to my life. These are things that I'm bombarded with. So I'm just kind of documenting them, whether they're
exactly. And
internet stuff or
here he is.
All right, okay.
Psycho.
And I think
Norman.
Yeah, and that's Norman. But yeah, and on the floor, covered by your finger, on there, there's a little jar.
Yes, is that Mummy?
No, that's interesting. No, it's not. It's the jar from the Roger van der Weyden altarpiece that's in the National Gallery of Mary Magdalene. The green one when she sat down with all, because the fabric on that looks all folded, and I haven't got a picture of it close, but
that's right, because Mummy was like a mummy, not
yes, she was. But the Roger van der Weyden altarpiece, which is, there's a bit of it, a fragment in the National Gallery, and they use it on their Christmas cards and things. It's Mary Magdalene sat down in a green dress,
right,
and there's a jar of oil, because that's her attribute, is the jar of oil. And I liked the fact that it's this beautiful what they call hairpin creases in the fabric, and there's something of that in the way that Norman Bates.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll just put a jar of oil next to him, just for a joke, really. And I've made his blanket a bit green,
right.
And if you see the Mary Magdalene, you'll recognize it straight away. So there's these little jokes,
You're just amusing yourself as you.
Yeah, just and it's amazing because you think, oh, that's obscure.
Do other people pick up on it? Like did anybody else pick up on that? Because I missed that entirely.
That no, I mean, I've not had anyone say, oh, that's. But there's one. Is it more recent? There's a detail I'm really interested in like little details you get in art. Hold on. In the Courtauld,
mm-hmm.
the most famous painting in the Courtauld is probably the Folies Bergère, the big Manet painting. And in the top left-hand corner is a trapeze artist.
Yeah.
And she's right. I mean, you wouldn't notice it because you see, oh, it's amazing. The bar has got these oranges and these beer bottles and these fantastic still life paintings. And, basically there's 4 still life paintings in the foreground. And then there's the whole thing about the woman's not reflected and that's right. All that. But in the top left-hand corner, you've got that. And I think that's hilarious. Yeah. But also it's like those Ascension paintings where you get those medieval paintings where Jesus's feet are coming down from the top, from the sky. Yes, there, you put it on the stairs. I love that. They just sort of, they dangle down and all these disciples are looking up his skirt, It's kind of, so I'm sure that, it was this bar where the Folies Bergère was a circus bar. So there were trapeze artists.
Right. And they're all, yeah,
so it's real.
Dirty old man looking up the girls.
But I think it's really funny. There's this in the top left-hand corner. And it's a detail that most people miss.
And that's all that's there is the feet. It stops at the feet. You're not.
It stops at the feet. That's the top left-hand corner of that painting.
Okay.
It's hilarious.
No,
and it's one of those paintings. It's as famous as any painting, really.
Yeah, never noticed.
Top left-hand corner of these 2 little feet dangling down. And if you look at these things long enough, or you engage with them, you see these little kind of. They're not jokes. Well, they maybe are jokes. If someone, I'd love to ask,
right,
Manet, why'd you do that? And he's like, He's like, well, just
It was
left-hand
funny.
corner, put something in, made me laugh, made me smile, and it was there. It was, move it around.
Exactly.
So the
That is how
absurd,
a camera would have cut off the scene, anyway.
yeah.
So
Like she's photobombing
right.
this thing, her ankles are photobombing it. And it's because it's where it is. Also, it's like I mean, I've probably spent longer painting my little version of it, and I've got 2 or 3
Yeah.
than he did, because it's just like bish bash bosh. It's kind of, the feet aren't great, and it's just done. But
Just a suggestion.
that, yeah, and I
Out of
think,
focus, peripheral vision sort of thing.
yeah, I mean, there's not. I mean, it's easy to sort of talk in detail about lots of things, but it's at the bottom of this project is it's not very complicated. I just paint things I like that I want to paint.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of relentlessness of it that appeals to me. Also, I can make them, I can make some in 10 minutes, some take an hour, some take longer, some sit there for a couple of weeks in the box, before I finish them and if I'm happy with them. But I try not to throw any of them away. I try not to, I've got some I don't think are very good, and I will keep going and keep going and keep going. Very occasionally you paint them out, but reusing them. But I quite like the economy of it as well. I can put them in an envelope and send them to you for quite cheaply and have this huge show of 200 odd images.
Yeah.
And I can, I buy paint, but I don't buy it very often. And I don't, when I was buying like expensive oil painting, and like you just write that
In
bit of
huge
Michael Harding on
quantities.
that, and there you go, there's 30 quid gone,
Yeah.
and that might not, and that's going to go in the bin probably 6 months' time because I'll be bored with it.
Yeah.
Whereas these are tiny. I think economically it's interesting as well, because when people, if you're making paintings, like larger paintings, and and you don't have an outlet for them, I don't have a gallery or anything like that. You sort of sit there and you try and sell them, and people go, well, I really like it, but I can't afford it, and I haven't got any space for it.
Yeah.
Those 2 problems go away when you're making something that's that big.
Exactly.
They're cheap and they're very small.
Yeah.
So well, not that I've sold loads, but I've sold some, and I quite like that they go out into the world. They find their way out. I don't want to keep hold of them all. I like having them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
You'll ever do a show? Well, you'll have all of them together.
Well, I've sold some, and I won't be able to get them back. So no, but I keep. I put a placeholder in the in the wallet, sort of where I've sold them, so I get the order right.
And you might write who you sold it to or who acquired.
Yeah, just for my own records, but also I quite like the idea of showing them all as a grid on a wall, but with
That's
the gaps.
what I'm thinking.
And they just sort of like, it's a bit like that fantastic sequence in Late Woebegone Days where Garrison Keillor talks about the flag, the living flag of hats and people. Oh, it's a really funny story. He talks about this flag day where they buy these red, white, and blue hats, and the guy photographs it from the top of the town hall, and the whole town are wearing these hats, and makes this Star Spangled Banner. And then people say they want to see it, so they have to have a shift version where they go up. But by the end of the day, people are drifting away, and it ends up, it looks like it had been a flag that had been hit by cannon fire. So you get these gaps, and they've gone. Those people have gone. And I quite like the idea. I did think, I could make new versions of the same picture and put it back in, but that's never going to work, because some of them thinking that was a bit of luck that I got it that right, or whatever. Or I could just replace them, and I could do. I did a project over 10 years ago where I did a drawing every day of they're about about that big, of corners of galleries, not the art, just shadows, light and arrays, plug sockets, rubbish, carpets, chairs, anything that wasn't art but in the gallery. And I did 365 of those over a year. But people bought them, and as they bought them, I asked them to photograph the piece in situ. So, and then they sent me a photograph, and I'd do another drawing of the drawing in context. And then sometimes they bought that as well. And then they bought them. So I got this picture recedes into. I'm not going to do that again, because I've still got 365 drawings.
You've done it.
But I kind of like the idea of showing all of them, but with the gaps.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining.
But there are technical issues about that. I mean, how do you fix them to a wall without destroying the wall or the I don't know. There's issues about that.
This is kind of working.
Good.
the solution that you found, the sort of double-sided archival tape, and
And it's not so sticky that it rips the paper when it comes off.
no, no.
It's quite good.
They are curling because they, of like the sort of the weather we've been having, and also, this is a domestic space, and I'm hanging laundry in
Yeah,
the room, and so but as soon as they're back in the
wallet.
the
Yeah.
wallet, they'll flatten out again.
They
Um,
look amazing, Eldi. I mean, I'm really, really pleased. I have to say, I mean,
these are the only ones out of
Mhm.
all of them that I didn't put in the show.
All right.
5.
Okay.
So I
Oh, and
couldn't
that's
really fit
that.
them.
There you go. That's one of my favorites, the Picabia monster paintings.
Yeah,
They're really horrible.
they
They're
are horrible, and I didn't want him. These,
no,
yeah, it just was too dark.
bad mojo. I've got the postcard sat here by my, so I can
Completely.
remind us. I
So
know, I
that's
love those.
based on whose work?
It's a Picabia.
Ah,
He made these. That's owned by the Tate, but it's
I'm
hardly
not
ever on
familiar with
display.
that part of his.
It's portrait of a doctor, and what he did is it's basically a portrait of a doctor that he did, and then he just painted over
That
it.
he doesn't like very much.
I know, but there's a few of them. They're called the monster paintings.
Yeah.
They're really interesting, and there isn't a book about them. You
I
can't.
just know his kind of, his industrial kind of,
Yeah, no,
smooth
he's
and
a really interesting one. I mean, I know he's a problematic guy because he was a real playboy, but he's one of these people who did what he felt like. That
yeah.
there's something about the privilege that he had, which he
Mm,
did have. There's no doubt. He was an independently
yeah.
wealthy guy, but he did make. He exercised his privilege to make extraordinary things, and so did Gauguin. And so did lots of people. And I think it's easy to overlook that now because we sort of, we see anyone who's got privilege is sort of,
Yeah.
they're and I've got that, I'm lucky, and I'm aware, but I have had jobs. I could be working, in an office, not doing this at all, but I like doing this, so I kind of,
Mm.
that's another
So
probably a
here's
subject
the
we can go.
Picabia.
Sorry,
I'm just
there's
looking for Picabia.
there's one at the top. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah, one of his more machiny ones. Yeah, and these weird
Those I'm
kind of.
familiar with. I'm not familiar with the monsters. I
No,
don't
he's
know
made,
if I'm going to
and he
look
also made
into
some.
monsters they freak me out.
All right, he also made some very, very weird kind of Aryan soft core, like pre-Eric Fischl kind of nudes, which are very odd, and they're from the
Those are the
19.
ones that you look through the peephole.
Oh, I don't know, but then from the 1940s, it's a very. I mean, they're kind of magazines, kind of health and efficiency magazine, beautiful um, women mostly, I think. But and they're problematic because of when they were being made, because of what was happening in Germany, and he wasn't
Mm.
unaware of that. But he's an interesting guy. I mean, him and Marcel Bruders and um, Walter Swennen, um, Martin Kippenberger, they all kind of sit in a weird position in relation to kind of art because what they do is they do whatever they like.
Mm.
Um, and okay, Kippenberger was part of the art gallery world and showed a lot, but his sort of, I'm going to make some paintings or I'm going to make a rug or an installation with chairs, or someone like Sigmar Polk, a shed with potatoes on the ends. This is, that's not supposed to work. If you go to art college and you're supposed to get a signature style and
Right.
a recognizable way of working, and it's research based and it's very grounded in a kind of
Mm.
in a meaning and a small p political or even big p political thrust, and it has all these. And then there's these other people who are just making stuff because it's insane, and they're like Captain Beefheart or something, and that's more interesting to me
Right.
than people. I don't like art to be didactic. I don't like being told what I should think about something. And a lot of art seems to me now that it it wants to tell you how to think. Like the
Mm.
artist worked it out, and now I'm going to tell you about it. And there's an obviously right and wrong way to respond to that. And there's some of that's really good work, but some of it I'm not interested in. I
Yeah.
mean, someone like Hugh Locke's Procession, there's obviously a position there, but there's a kind of joyfulness and an
Mm.
explosion and an inclusion and seduction that's kind of wants to bring you in a
Yeah.
non-judgmental way, that makes you want to find out more. Whereas there are some that's kind of very much no, it's not really. that. And
super off-putting. Yeah.
yeah, and the idea of sort of Sigmar Polk making these kind of dot paintings or weird Alice in Wonderland things, and it just seems to be opening up a kind of psychic space that's really interesting. That does feel like it's research too. Obviously, Sigmar Polk, it took a lot of drugs, so that's part of it. Is that, but I get. I mean, I'm not someone who does that, but I quite like the phantasmagoria element of art that can kind of swirl around you in a non-elegant, non kind of, it's hard, it's difficult because it's so rich. I've been looking at symbolist art recently, which is kind of weird because it's trying to make a copy of go on, what are you going to find?
I'm not sure if this fits into that category.
Right. Oh, well, that's just, I think that was just a bit of a rock carving that I saw somewhere, and I kind of worked it out. No, I mean, things like that, that's the first stages of a version of Arnold Böcklin's Island of the Dead.
Ah, okay.
About 3 versions of the painting. It's a really good painting. I've always loved it. And it's people like, oh God, what's his name? Odilon Redon. And these very strange paintings and beautiful pastel drawings of flowers that seem to be floating about. And Chagall comes out of that, but also people like
so it's kind of like a spiritualist or spiritual kind of undercurrent happening.
Well, I don't know. It's very odd. It's very kind of folk horror in some respects, but it's also things like J.K. Houseman's Against Nature. The book, which has descriptions of paintings in it by, is it by Redon or can't remember. Very strange. I'm not a fan of Pre-Raphaelites, but it's kind of the contemporary of the Pre-Raphaelites, but in France, and they're just very strange narratives, paintings, and sort of weird mythological creatures that sort of sit outside the idea of impressionism. They were kind of about the same time, but they were like weren't interested in people in bars with feet. They were interested in kind of a darker, moodier, sort of weird, almost filmic kind of way of thinking about it. I'm saying this and I'm sort of making it up as I go along.
I'm not familiar with it. This is, I mean, I've heard of the symbolists, but I'm not sure I ever actually looked
into. They're not very symbolic. They're not very symbolic.
There you go.
It's a weird, it's a weird title for them, but they're really, really kind of interesting because they're sort of a dead end as well. They're sort of, they did that, and then people went, Cubism's happening. We're going to love too. So it sort of sits outside that narrative of modernism, but they're in there. They're one of the isms, but they seem like a bit of a dead end. Oscar Wilde's sort of, Picture of Dorian Gray is sort of related to that, which has, and maybe it has more influence in film. Sort of the way we
more natural kind of experience.
But it is, and the other artist that comes up over and over again is Philip Guston. There's a portrait of him in there, and there's bits of I've done little quotes from thing. I think he's fascinating, but he's interesting because he
is this
portrait there. Yeah, that's the portrait there. I think he's an interesting guy because he makes these amazing pictures that have this sort of slightly mythological sort of feel about them, but they're just piles of junk, or people driving around or whatever. And there was a whole hoo-ha during COVID about, the exhibition that was going to happen, and that COVID meant that it didn't, and then they went away and rethought it because of Black Lives Matter and because of all these Klansmen in it, and I thought it was a bad read, and I sort of get the he was a very bad reading of Philip Guston. It maybe wasn't a bad reading of the curation, because they probably should have had a more diverse curating team of curators, but I suspect we saw the show that they'd curated, even when it did come on, and I'm glad we saw it. It probably wasn't that dissimilar to what the show they curated. It just had a bit more guidance in there. Like what you're seeing is not racism. It's not celebrating these people. He's taking the mick out of them. But he's an interesting guy because he's got his feet very firmly in art history. Piero della Francesco and others, and Mantegna and those massive friezes at Arezzo that I mentioned. And I really like that conversation with the hinterland of the subject, and it's an ongoing conversation. And art is an on. I mean, we're coming to the end of the second 40 minutes on Zoom, but making pictures, whether it's that little stick man, this is what civilization or society does, what humans do as soon as they've got time, as soon as they've got shelter, and as soon as they've got safety, and as soon as they've got food, they make art, or they start scratching designs into bits of bone. It's a 40,000, well, probably longer, 40 or 50,000 word a year conversation that's been going on. And somehow we forget that when we're teaching. I mean, I teach a distance learning college on fine art and drawing and painting. And sometimes it's easy to forget that this is something that's been going on for as long as anybody knows. And it has its own way of doing things, its own methods. You know, drawing is a way of doing research. It's not a way of showing research. It's a way of doing research. And there's a whole thing about artist research now. And I thought, well, Cézanne's doing research. He doesn't write it up. I mean, he writes a letter about it to someone, but he was doing research. Picasso and Braque were doing research. And the Cubism, and it's easy to forget that was research, because nowadays research means something different. It means finding out about a subject, and getting a residency and going to the library and finding out about things and then making work in the light of that. And I actually think that the studio is where the research is done if you're an artist, and we do not need to adopt autoethnographic methods or bad social science or misinterpret other perfectly good disciplines that are designed and run in those disciplines to good effect, but we kind of cobble them together in art seemingly and think that's a good thing. I think art is a really good way of researching stuff anyway. So that's probably opening up a Pandora's box a bit, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of how we figure out who we are, where we fit in the world.
Yeah, and it's about standing in front of those.
To us, in general, the big questions.
And you stand in front of a Titian, or you stand in front of a Rembrandt, and you stand there and you go, a human being made that. And they made that. They didn't make a script, which is now being performed like a Shakespeare. They made that thing. That mark on that painting by that Rembrandt. I had a moment after COVID. I went down to the National Gallery, and I had not been there for a year or two because of COVID. And I went around the corner and I saw there's a painting of his common law wife. It was his sort of mistress, housekeeper, who he married. And she's in this kind of shift with a bit of a fur wrap. And it's a beautiful painting, and it's in a room full of, or it was in a room full of Rembrandt. So you don't, you see the big ones or the powerful ones. You kind of miss it, but I was really close to it. I kind of went around the corner, and there it was. And there's a bit where he's just painted the cuff of this shift, and it's one brushstroke. Knocked me for six. Absolutely filled me up. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I will do it. I will do a version of it. I've got the drawing. I've just not got up to it yet. And it's like being human. It's about being in love, and it's about kind of fancying her.
Yeah.
And it's that sensuality of that. And that seems very human and very connectable, in the same way that sort of some work isn't. I mean, that's an extreme example. It's not fair to compare all contemporary artists with Rembrandt because he's the governor, but that's the idea, is to reach in so that you can kind of communicate out, I suppose. I don't know.
I know, at the end, who knows anything? We just do it. We don't always know why.
And these works are kind of a bit of a compulsion, and there isn't an end to it yet. So
I'm delighted to that you said yes to. Oh, there's more to come.
I've got more. I've spent money on those. I got to make them. Sorry, no, thank you for inviting me.
I was just, thank you for saying yes, and it's been absolutely brilliant, and we have like 5 minutes left to sort of like wrap up and for me to say thank you. But is there anything you want to say to your students who might be watching this in these 5 minutes? If we're going to run over, that's fine. We'll just log back in and cut it together.
The thing I've told all my students, and I've had hundreds and hundreds of students over the years, is just make work, make stuff that you feel that you're driven to make. Don't try and second guess and this goes to not just
What you
students, but
think everybody else wants to see.
don't second guess what you think other people want you to make. I mean, it's all right to be commissioned and everything, and I get that. And I would, if someone said I want to make, if someone said I like that one, I've sold it, I'll make another one. It's fine, it's not the end of the world. But make the work that matters, and don't be afraid to make loads of work. And the constant mantra I have is, you go and see an exhibition of work, and you see the tip of the iceberg. But the artist makes the iceberg, all of it, all of it that you never see. Now, whether that's sketchbooks, conversations, phone conversations, visits to galleries, listening to music, cooking, all of those impact on how you are. And the idea of making preparatory work and then the final work is a very old-fashioned way of making art. I mean, it does happen, and some people can do it. And obviously, I've already said that I make these and I don't waste any of them. So I'm not doing preparatory sketches as such, but there's a lot of hinterland to these, me collecting images, sifting through images, making other work that relates to it, and even making different iterations of the same kind of image over and over again in this section. So it's all preparatory work, and it's all, you make stuff, and now and again you get to look at it as if it's finished, but it's all work in progress. And you just have to make all of it. It's a commitment to time. It's not mystical. It's kind of work. And the art thing follows. That's the other thing, is like, you don't make art, you make work. You make work, and the rest of the world can decide whether it's art or not, because that is nothing to do with the artist. They're just making stuff that's interesting, and it goes out into the world, and some people go, that's a work of art. I think I don't want to be that guy on the stairs at the party when someone says, like, oh, what do you do? I'm a poet. Do you want to hear one of my poems? That kind of awful. It's just stuff. And some people make other kinds of stuff. I make these, and they mean something to me, and they look good, and that's not a small thing.
Sorry, I missed your last.
And they look good.
Yeah, they bloody do.
And that's not a small thing. Art should look good. It should look how you want it to look. And that's easy to forget as well, because people make bad art in the service of good causes, and they go, but it's about the cause. No, make the work look good. It's one of its obligations is to look good. And I don't mean decorative or pretty or well made. I mean, it has to look how you want it to look, so that it can do its job. If that doesn't look good, if it doesn't matter how it looks, then it will get in the way of what you're trying to do, because people look at it and go, oh, the fact that it's scruffy, that's important. You go, no, it's not. It's about, no, make it look as good as you make it look right. Sorry, let's change the subject. Make work. Think about it later.
Yeah, I think that's the message I would take away as an artist.
Yeah,
just do it.
Yeah, do it. It's great. It's better than work. Better than working.
Yeah.
If you can
it's
do
work,
that.
but
yeah, I know.
It's play.
Yeah, it's play. Well, can I just say, we've got a minute to go, but thank you ever so much for taking the time to ask me to hang the work, which I know is fiddly, and getting in and out is fiddly. And for doing that, and making such a lovely job of it, and promoting it online and everything, and it's really good looking. And I'm really
pleased with it as well. I'm so glad you're pleased.
Yeah, and the website looks great.
Less than a minute, so many of these are still for sale. £30 a pop plus postage.
30 quid, and you're supporting me and the Small House Gallery, which is a great thing to do.
Yeah, awesome. It's been so lovely to catch up with you, Bryan.
Thank you.
We'll speak soon.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Me too.
Cheerio.
Take care. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.